Hello there everyone, and welcome to another custom Thomas Wooden Railway review video. Now, what was supposed to happen was that you would next get a Thomas Wooden Railway review video, or Thomas Wooden Railway custom review video on a custom model that I've done on another character. But if you've seen the YouTube post, or have seen the journal on DeviantArt that I had posted, you would know that I'm having this sort of memory card error issue. And at the time of the recording of this video, I am still struggling to figure out how to get that error to go away, because there is something on that memory card that I need to get, but unfortunately the camera is just not letting me. And that problem just suddenly happened after I had finished with a lot of filming, which hopefully will not be the case with the memory card that I'm using to record this review video. But regardless, here we are with a couple of custom characters that I have done. To the left we have Joy, and to the right we have Nazz. These are two characters that were created by a YouTube user called Felix Cheng. I had to make a cut there because as I had begun filming, the battery said that it needed recharging, so I had to go and recharge it, and it's been over an hour since then. But anyway, now I am back here, and I will now explain the backstory in regards to Joy and Nazz. Well, for starters, I don't really know the whole backstory in regards to how these characters came about. As I've mentioned before, this was before Hero even existed, so they could not have been influenced off of him. And, you know, I have no idea what influenced Felix Cheng into creating these sorts of characters. Now, the whole deal with Joy and Nazz is that basically they're supposed to be like Donald and Douglas, except from Japan instead of Scotland. In fact, Felix Cheng had done 4 homemade episodes, 2 of which have Joy and Nazz appear as the stars, filling the roles of Donald and Douglas in both of those episodes. And okay, well, anyway, he probably just thought that these engines, or at least the Japanese C-20, no, not 20, 62 engines were pretty interesting. And, you know, they probably were characters that he made up just for the sake of making up some characters. At least, I think so. But, you know, if he's watching, he could probably tell you all in the comment section his whole inspiration for creating these characters. And anyway, the backstory in-universe about these characters is that, as I've mentioned, they are supposed to be Japanese versions of Donald and Douglas. Well, not exactly, but what I mean by that is their backstory is similar to Donald and Douglas, and that Sir Topham Hatt had ordered for an engine from Japan to come, but only 1 engine was expected, but ended up getting 2. And pretty much, if you know the whole story about Donald and Douglas, you pretty much know the whole story about Joy and Nazz. And you know, obviously, even though he never did a story which explained about Joy and Nazz eventually being accepted as permanent residents on Sodor, he only did the story about, you know, Joy and Nazz coming to Sodor, and Sir Topham Hatt trying to come up with his decision about which of these engines to send away and which one to keep. But he never did like a Joy and Nazz version of the Deputation. Is that what the episode was called? Yeah, that episode in Season 2, where Donald and Douglas were finally accepted as permanent residents on Sodor. In the other episode that they appeared in, which was Bad Day at Mount Fuji, they had been on Sodor for a while, and, you know, they'd been permanent residents on Sodor for a while, and they were just now working on a brand new train. Well, the whole story is that they were going to Coldefell for some sort of a celebration, which happened to be Japanese themed, interestingly, considering that these two engines are from Japan. And the whole story about these characters in later years is that they were characters that did make an appearance in the Kuno the Tankajin series, and some other people have also included them in their own series based upon Kuno the Tankajin. And, you know, just over the years, there wasn't really much of these characters, at least not until now. Anyway, so now to get onto the whole story about each of these customs and how I had made them. Here I have changed the camera to kind of give a bit of a whole view, or show this character in different angles. In case you have not figured out by now, I did use Thomas & Friends wood models of Hero to create both of these customs. I got two of the Thomas Wood Heroes from Amazon, both of them being the 2018 variants, the ones that did not have the paint on them completely, the ones that had the exposed wood. I got those specifically because, you know, I was making custom characters, and hardly anyone is even going to care if you make custom models on the Thomas & Friends wood trains, at least the ones that came out in 2018 that were not painted all of the way. I know that, you know, if I had gotten a hero that was completely painted, it would probably save me a bit of time on painting. All I would have to do would be the wheels. But I wanted to actually make them look not too much like Hero, because they are completely different characters entirely, and they have nothing to do with Hero, since, as I said, Hero did not even exist yet when these characters were even conceived of. So what I did was, well, for starters, I sawed off the front part of each of their boilers. I just took the front part off, and when I had sawed it off, I had seen that it was actually connected in two ways on the train. I thought maybe it would only be connected at one point, but there were actually two connection points for the front of the boiler. So I had to saw both of those off. And another thing that I needed to do was take a eraser and erase the name board on Hero's smoke reflectors. It was very difficult to do, and it certainly took me a while to get it all off, but I managed to get it all off. And the whole reason why I did that was because, well, Joy and Nazz's name boards are actually down here, which is very different from Hero, whose name board was up here. And, you know, that was the whole reason why I needed to erase the name board up here, because I was creating a character that, while I was using a model of Hero, I was creating a character who was not Hero, but a character that was very similar. And using the Thomas & Friends wood models of Hero really worked out compared to what would have happened if I used a Thomas Wooden Railway Hero. Now, coming in, I have brought my Thomas Wooden Railway Hero, which I've had, I think, since 2009. And, you know, can you believe that it's been like 10 years since Hero the Rails came out? In fact, it's pretty much been 10 years since Thomas the Tank Engine has gone into CGI. I mean, everybody remembered when that first started. You know, when they switched from using the models to CGI, and, you know, for a while we just all went along with it being this sort of new thing. But, you know, now it's been around for a decade, and it's pretty much, you know, old news. But it really worked out for me to use the Thomas Wood models of Hero rather than the wooden railway model, because the wooden railway model has the cylinder on top of his face, but the wood models do not have that. And that's actually very fitting, because Joy and Nazz are slightly different bases from Hero. They don't have the cylinders on top, because Hero is a D51 Japanese steam engine, while Joy and Nazz are C62 steam engines. And so what I did was, you know, after I had gotten the faces off of each of these, I just then went and spray painted the entire bodies in black spray paint. There is a bit of red that is still shown on the bottom part of the wheels, but on the other parts, you don't really see anything. Although I did have to do multiple spray paints, since sometimes there are small chips that can come off, and I would have to spray paint over those, and sometimes it can be very difficult to do. And I even had to take a black Sharpies marker and color over some of the black markings, but, you know, it was in a slightly different black from the black spray paint, so I had to end up just coloring over all of the wheels, although I just went and colored over the front wheels, or at least the wheels on the engine, and not on the tender. And as I have done with a number of my customs, I did use printouts for the name boards and the windows and the numbers. Joy happens to have his name board on his side. Nazz also has his name board on the side. And they do each have a number on their tenders. In this case, Joy is number 15, and Nazz is number 16. And another thing that I did was also take some model magic and actually glue on this bit right here, which is supposed to be coal, because, you know, with the Thomas & Friends wood models, they have the painted coal on top, while, you know, for example, Hero right here has the plastic coal. Now, of course, a lot of the older wooden railway trains did have the plastic coal on them, but with no, actually, the Thomas & Friends wood train, nope, I'm just, okay, I know that you may be like, oh, you are getting it wrong. It was the older trains who had the painted coal, then later they had the plastic coal, and with Thomas Wood, they have the painted coal again. Thank you. That's much better. That is much better. So, pretty much that's what I got with these characters right here. And I did mention this when I did another review video, which right now I'm struggling to even get up. But just in case I may end up having to record that review video again, what I said in that video was that I do happen to plan on making recreations of the stories that Felix Cheng had done, since the episodes that Felix Cheng has done are not around anymore. They've been gone for like a couple of years. I don't even know if Felix Cheng even still has the episodes. But regardless, they've been off of YouTube for quite a long time. But I do happen to still remember those episodes. Well, mostly, but what I do remember is that Felix Cheng used Tomy models of Joy and Nazz. And, you know, since he didn't have, or the models did not have any magnets on the back, since they were Tomy models, he just had to improvise by putting his hand next to the cargo to make it look like the trains were pulling them. But, you know, with these, I've got actual magnets because they are actual wooden train models. So I can easily get them to work out the way that they should. So that right there is my custom-made wooden railway Joy and Nazz train models. I sure hope you have enjoyed this. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.